We're back, and I'm just going to show you a few images of this same process of mixing, or how to mix our shades and tints of our pure hues for our color wheel. Okay, so here we go, and I'm moving. I've just completed my yellow. You can see this is the palette sheet, or part of the palette sheet. I've removed it and let it dry, and I've kind of folded it down here so I can have these patches of my pure hue yellow, my shade 1 yellow, and my shade 2 yellow. The reason for that is because I am going to want to compare them as I am trying to mix a good choice for my yellow orange shade 2 and my yellow orange shade 1, right? This way I can kind of, if I could even fold this a little better so that I don't have any of this white space, and I can get them directly kind of butted up against one another. So I can compare them. I want, as we move away to really both sides, right, of yellow around the color wheel. So if I go to yellow orange, right, that is going to be everything is going to be a bit darker than it is for yellow. So all of the tints, all the pure hue, and then both of those shades, each is going to be for the yellow orange, each is going to get a little bit darker. You can see that starting with the pure hue. Over here, I've put out a blob of my already pre-mixed yellow-orange out of my container. I did have a blob of carbon black, and I have mixed up a pile. Remember, start with the darkest of those two hues that you're going to be mixing. So shade 2. And again, you want to be able to compare it with the darkest shade of your yellow that you've mixed. You want it to be not too much darker, just a little bit darker, okay? So it's going to be important to dry, right, your as you test, right? Dry your little patches as you're testing out, and just compare dry to dry. You want to, this may be a little bit darker than I should have gone. Again, we talked about I could probably have gone a little bit lighter, or more yellow mixed in for both of these shades in my yellow. This would be the absolute darkest that I would want to go. This is a little bit darker than this. I don't know that, I think it relates pretty well. And it still does leave us some room to drop down. But again, we may find that we need a little bit more room as we go down towards violet, which will be pretty close to black, frankly. Okay. Okay. So we have mixed up a decent quantity and been testing, right, against this to compare it, right, in value, a little bit darker. Obviously, it's changing its hue. This is getting warmer or more orangey, right? This is, by comparison, sort of cooler and more greenish by comparison. So you'll see that temperature change. You'll see that hue change as you mix. Okay. And mix up enough paint so you can go right on to your color wheel, as you go. The next photograph here. Okay. Here okay. So here we still have the same comparison. It helps for them to be pretty well aligned. Here's the one I just mixed, that darkest value, and here is my value that I'm testing to see if it in fact does sit visually kind of in between my pure hue yellow orange and my darkest shade, my darkest shade of yellow orange. Okay, and that's pretty good. It's, you want to feel like it's that regular step where the middle doesn't feel closer to the either end. Okay. I think it feels like a good even pace walking down from yellow-orange to the middle to the slightly darker, okay? It's kind of an even difference between each of these three steps, which is what you want. And you can notice this is a little bit darker than the yellow one, okay? Which is, again, what you want. You know, maybe we could get a hair more yellow orange in each of one of these, but you know, don't go again, don't go any darker than this. Okay, let's see. Okay, and now that we have our shades, our two shades, and then, you know, again, the photograph is kind of making these look a little bit darker than they really are. I have, again, moved over to a different area on my palette. This was what we just saw in the previous one here, those patches. Here's my shade 1 of yellow orange. Now you can see the rest of the white here, and you know what, I had put out a new blob of my yellow orange, and I have mixed up my two tints of yellow orange. And again, I have used the color aid swatches that I had previously cut out for, let's see, I guess this is this is yellow orange tint 2, this is yellow orange tint 4, okay, in my in those color aid swatches, okay, that I had attached to my ladder, my 12 hue ladder. Okay, so as I'm adding white to the yellow orange, I have this swatch on my palette. You always want it there, right? If you're trying to match a swatch, it's got to be somewhere on your palette so that you can put it really close, if not right up against the color that you're trying to match it to. Otherwise, you just don't, you know, you won't be able to do it, okay? All right, so you can see there's a little bit of temperature difference, a little bit of chroma difference. This is a little more vibrant, clean looking. This looks a little bit dingy, right? A little bit duller. And so, you know, but value-wise, I think they're pretty well matched. This will darken just a little bit and down, and I think that's a pretty good match. This is also a good match. This is our lightest value, and it looks like it's comparing pretty well to our lightest tint of yellow orange. Okay. And finally, moving on. Right here are all of my patches kind of set next to one another. Okay, and so we're sort of looking at the movement between the orange to this step of yellow orange. I'm sorry, this is yellow orange to this step of yellow orange to this step of yellow orange here, this tint, right? And it's fairly even. I mean, I would say honestly, like this. I mean, you are gonna want to match these to the color aid, these first two at least. You know, to me, this looks like I might be able to go a little tiny bit more orange in there, but I think, you know, they are pretty good matches to the color aid swatches, so that's fine. And so now you can kind of see the progression. In some ways, I do want, you know, again, the photograph makes these look a little bit darker than they really are, but I probably could go more orange with that middle one, and you know, more orange in with this one even, and hence maybe even a little more orange with this one, right? So that they're kind of a more regular progression. Okay. Inevitably, even when you get these painted onto the color wheel, you may really I would have to do this, and I've been doing this for a long time. I would have to go back and redo things, right? You know, because then you're seeing them really interact, and what seemed to be working well the first time around, or, you know, even the second time around, you may still reconsider that, right? And make adjustments and realize, you know what, I can get this better. Just make sure that you have a nice smooth paint surface and that you continue to mask when you go. When you are masking the tint and the shade areas, I think you should do the shades first, frankly. When you're masking those areas along the edge, remember you have a curved edge. You can try to see about, you know, try out the masking tape for curves. You may end up needing to put a little bit more of that magic tape outside of it, right? You know, beyond the curve, simply because the tape is very narrow and you don't want to kind of spread your brush over it and then get paint where you don't want it to be, if that makes sense. I think it's only like 1/8 of an inch wide. that tape. So you could always put just more magic tape on the outside of it, overlapping a little bit, and that way you're not having to worry about making curves. You know, you're just protecting that area from getting paint on it. And I think that should be it. Hopefully this helps just to see the visual of this. Again, you want to mix enough paint so that you have enough to cover your color wheel areas. Okay, they're not huge areas, and especially the tint areas are quite small. And you know, so you probably need to mix up a little bit more paint for the shade areas just because they're more surface area. And you know, you just want to mix up enough so that it can cover it twice. And you'll kind of get to know the quantity of that a little bit better as you go through all 12 families. And you, again, move adjacently. So you're going to go from yellow to yellow orange to orange, and so on and so on and so on, until your last one that you'll be mixing is your yellow green before you go back to up to yellow, which you've already done. Okay. All right. I think that should be good. And thank you.